It was the most complicated medical case of the year at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. 20 of America's finest doctors had gathered to save Edward Thompson, the billionaire owner of the largest tech empire on the East Coast. For 3 weeks, he'd been fighting for his life, and despite expensive tests, cutting-edge equipment, and international consultations, no one could figure out what was killing this 50-year-old man. While medical luminaries debated complex theories in conference rooms, Maria Rodriguez, a simple cleaning lady of 42, was observing something everyone else had ignored. With only a high school education and 30 years of hospital experience, Maria had spotted a detail that escaped anyone with a medical degree. What she told the doctors that evening would not only save the billionaire's life, but reveal a truth that would shock the American medical world. Because sometimes experience matters more than education, and humility more than arrogance. Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston had never seen a case like this. Edward Thompson, 50 years old, founder of Thompson Technologies, had been rushed to the ER 3 weeks earlier with symptoms that defied all medical logic. High fever that came and went without recognizable patterns, excruciating abdominal pain, skin rashes that appeared and disappeared, and most troubling, progressive deterioration of cognitive functions. Dr. Michael Stevens, chief of internal medicine and one of America's most respected physicians, had called in the country's top specialists for consultation. The billionaire's room saw a parade of neurologists, gastroenterologists, dermatologists, infectious disease experts, and hematologists. Each had their own theories, their own tests to order, each convinced they were on the verge of solving the puzzle. Blood work showed contradictory values. MRI scans revealed unexplainable anomalies. Toxicology screenings ruled out poisoning. Autoimmune disease tests came back negative. Even international consultations via video call with specialists from Johns Hopkins and Mayo Clinic brought no concrete answers. Edward was conscious, but confused. The man who had built a $100 billion empire, who spoke 6 languages and had revolutionized the American tech sector, now struggled to remember his children's names. His personal assistant, Jennifer Walsh, coordinated care while maintaining contact with the board of directors who desperately awaited news. His wife Patricia had flown in from Los Angeles with their 2 teenage children. The family had rented an entire wing of the hospital, turning it into a media bunker to avoid the reporters besieging the building. News of the billionaire's hospitalization had crashed Thompson Technologies stock and triggered speculation across Wall Street. Each day brought new consultations, new theories, new failures. Professor Robert Chen was convinced it was a rare form of encephalitis. Dr. Sarah Williams, a tropical disease specialist, suspected a parasite contracted during Edward's business trips to Southeast Asia. Dr. James Miller, a toxicology expert, continued searching for traces of poisonous substances despite negative tests. While doctors lost themselves in increasingly elaborate discussions, Maria Rodriguez continued her silent work. 42 years old, born in El Salvador, she'd arrived in Boston at 18 with a high school diploma and determination to work hard. For 24 years, she'd cleaned hospitals in Boston, the last 6 at Mass General. Maria had witnessed thousands of births and deaths. She'd seen miracles and tragedies, learned to recognize signs of life and death better than many doctors. She couldn't read medical charts, but she could read faces, gestures, small things that often escaped those too focused on numbers and graphs. Every morning at 5, she entered Edward's room for cleaning. Family and doctors usually slept, allowing her to observe the patient in silence. What she saw deeply troubled her, but no one had ever asked for her opinion. Maria had noticed something everyone else had ignored, something so simple and obvious that it had escaped the most brilliant minds in American medicine. As days passed and Edward's condition worsened, Maria knew she would soon need to find the courage to speak up. Maria had developed a precise routine over the years that allowed her to work without disturbing patients and families. She entered Edward's room at 5 in the morning, when the hospital was wrapped in silence, and family members slept in recliners beside the bed. In those moments of absolute quiet, Maria could observe without being observed. What struck her wasn't the sophisticated machines surrounding the bed or monitors recording every heartbeat. It was Edward's behavior when he thought he was alone. During weeks of hospitalization, Maria had noticed symptoms followed a precise pattern. Every time Patricia approached the bed to speak to him or touch him, Edward showed signs of agitation. His breathing became labored. He started sweating. Skin rashes intensified. Doctors attributed these episodes to the natural course of his illness. But Maria saw something different. She'd also noticed Edward reacted strangely to certain personal items Patricia had brought from home. When his wife had put his favorite watch on his wrist, a Rolex he never removed, Edward had such a violent crisis that doctors had to sedate him. When Patricia sprayed his favorite cologne in the room, believing familiar scents might help his memory, Edward began vomiting uncontrollably. Maria had worked long enough in hospitals to recognize signs of poisoning. Not the acute kind that kills in hours, but the slow, insidious type that destroys the body day by day. She'd seen elderly patients poisoned by unscrupulous caregivers, betrayed husbands seeking revenge, impatient children eager for inheritance. But accusing someone of attempted murder without concrete proof was dangerous, especially when it involved the wife of one of America's most powerful men. Who would believe a cleaning lady with a high school education against the opinion of 20 specialized doctors? Maria continued observing silently, mentally noting every detail. She'd noticed Patricia always carried a small leather purse from which she constantly pulled objects to comfort her husband. Hand cream, scented tissues, candies she claimed were his favorites. Every time Patricia used one of these items on Edward, his symptoms worsened in the following hours. Maria had also observed Patricia's behavior when she thought no one was watching. During night shifts, the woman's expression completely changed. Loving concern disappeared, replaced by cold calculation and impatience. Maria had seen her checking her watch, making whispered phone calls, and obsessively monitoring her husband's condition. The breakthrough came one night when Maria was cleaning the adjacent bathroom. She heard Patricia speaking on the phone, believing no one could understand her. Patricia was discussing speeding up the process and not being able to wait much longer. She mentioned the substance and how the doctors were too stupid to figure it out. Maria couldn't catch everything, but what she heard confirmed her suspicions. The next day, Maria did something she'd never done in 24 years of work. She requested a meeting with the chief of staff. Dr. Stevens received her out of courtesy, thinking she wanted to report some organizational problem. When Maria began listing with precision all the details she'd observed, the doctor started listening more carefully. Maria spoke about Patricia's objects, Edward's reactions, the behavioral patterns. Most importantly, she recounted the phone call she'd overheard. Dr. Stevens was accustomed to basing decisions on concrete evidence, but he was also a physician with 30 years of experience, who knew that sometimes answers come from the most unexpected places. He decided to take Maria's observations seriously, at least enough to conduct some discreet verification. That evening, he ordered new, more specific toxicology tests, searching for substances initially unconsidered. Most importantly, he decided to observe more carefully the interaction between Edward and his wife. Dr. Michael Stevens didn't sleep that night. Maria's words echoed in his mind, challenging everything he thought he knew about Edward Thompson's case. As chief of staff, he had a duty to evaluate every possibility, even those that seemed absurd. The next morning, he ordered new toxicology screenings, focusing on easily obtainable substances: mercury, arsenic, tropane alkaloids extracted from common but lethal plants. Simultaneously, he had security install a hidden camera in the room to better monitor the patient. The breakthrough came 3 days later. New tests revealed significant traces of atropine in Edward's blood, a toxic substance that caused exactly his symptoms: mental confusion, hallucinations, abdominal pain, skin rashes. Hidden cameras provided decisive evidence. Recordings clearly showed Patricia applying cream to her sleeping husband's hands, with a cold, calculating expression completely different from the affection she displayed during the day. Detective Sarah Johnson discovered Patricia had enormous gambling debts and a secret relationship with an American financial consultant. She had planned everything: slow poisoning that seemed like a mysterious illness, confused doctors, a billion-dollar inheritance. The arrest was planned with precision. Patricia was caught in the act while applying the poisoned cream. Analysis revealed atropine concentration sufficient to kill a man within weeks. Maria was cleaning the hallway when she saw Patricia arrested. She felt not satisfaction, but deep sadness. She had saved a life, but helped destroy a family. Once specific treatment began, Edward recovered miraculously. Within a week, he returned to being the brilliant entrepreneur he'd always been. Maria had proven that experience and careful observation can be worth as much as a medical degree. News of Patricia Thompson's arrest made headlines worldwide. Newspapers ran stories about the cleaning lady who saved the billionaire, but behind sensational headlines lay a story of social redemption. Maria found herself at the center of media attention. Journalists besieged her small apartment in East Boston, where she lived with her 17-year-old son Carlos, raised alone after her husband died in a construction accident. Dr. Stevens publicly acknowledged Maria's contribution during a press conference. She had taught that careful observation can be more valuable than any diagnostic tool. But the most significant recognition—
Enjoying the story? Give it a little like, and don't forget to subscribe. Now then, let's carry on.
—came from Edward Thompson. When he fully recovered, he requested a private meeting with Maria. The man who had nearly died looked into the eyes of the woman who saved his life. During lucid moments in his illness, he had sensed something wrong but couldn't identify it. Edward did something extraordinary. He offered Maria a job at his company as head of security and employee wellness. Additionally, he fully funded Carlos's university education, as the boy dreamed of becoming a doctor. Maria's story inspired changes in the American healthcare system. The Department of Health launched programs to involve non-medical staff in clinical observations. The Thompson case became an example studied in medical schools across Europe. Maria accepted the offer, but wanted to continue part-time at the hospital as a consultant. Her first day in the new office at Thompson Technologies was surreal. From invisible to executive, she created employee wellness programs and protocols to identify stress situations. A year later, Maria received recognition from the president. During the ceremony, she said that it doesn't matter what job you do or what title you have. What matters is how well you can see others and how willing you are to help them. 6 months after Patricia Thompson's arrest, Massachusetts General had implemented what became known as the Maria Rodriguez Protocol, procedures that revolutionized approaches to patient diagnosis and care. It wasn't just about listening to non-medical staff, but creating an integrated system where every observation was considered. Dr. Stevens, promoted to hospital director, had made this philosophy the heart of new management. Weekly multidisciplinary meetings brought together doctors, nurses, therapists, orderlies, and cleaning staff to discuss complex cases. What initially seemed like social experimentation proved to be extraordinary medical success. Maria, in her new role as clinical observation consultant, divided time between Thompson Technologies and the hospital. She had developed training methods that taught healthcare workers to observe patients differently, beyond traditional medical parameters. Her classes were attended by American students and international specialists. The most significant case came 8 months later. A 7-year-old girl, Emma Davis, was hospitalized with unexplainable neurological symptoms. Doctors had hypothesized everything: brain tumors, autoimmune diseases, rare infections, but no diagnosis was convincing. Angela Miller, a 40-year-old nurse who had attended Maria's courses, noticed something crucial. The child improved when parents weren't present and systematically worsened after visits. Angela observed that the father gave the girl special candies he claimed were vitamins, while the mother constantly sprayed hand sanitizer, even on the child's face. Following the protocol developed after the Thompson case, Angela reported her observations without hesitation. Toxicology tests revealed the candies contained excessive iron doses, while the sanitizer had been adulterated with industrial chemicals. Both parents, with undiagnosed psychiatric problems, were unconsciously poisoning their daughter. The child was saved, and parents received necessary psychiatric help. Most importantly, the system created through Maria's intuition had worked perfectly. Carlos, Maria's son, was excelling in medical studies. He had become a symbol of social redemption, proving talent can emerge from any background given proper opportunities. He often accompanied his mother to conferences, sharing his experience as son of a woman who changed the world through humility and intelligence. During an international holistic medicine conference in Boston, Maria shared the stage with some of the world's most important doctors. The contrast was evident. Luminaries with decades of study versus a woman with high school education who had revolutionized hospital diagnostics. But when Maria spoke, educational differences disappeared. Her practical wisdom, ability to explain complex concepts simply, and humility in addressing difficult questions conquered the entire audience. A Harvard professor commented that Maria possessed intelligence that cannot be taught in universities. Edward Thompson, fully recovered, had transformed his experience into a personal mission. He created the Maria Rodriguez Foundation for Human Medicine, an organization funding research on hospital communication and healthcare worker training programs. The foundation quickly became one of Europe's most respected in the medical field. The most significant recognition for Maria came 2 years after the case that made her famous. Harvard Medical School awarded her an honorary doctorate in medical communication sciences, recognizing her revolutionary contribution to modern medicine. During the graduation ceremony, Maria wore academic robes with the same naturalness she had worn cleaning uniforms. In her acceptance speech, she spoke words that became part of university history. She had never stopped learning, even when everyone thought she had nothing to teach. True wisdom doesn't lie in books, but in the ability to see others as human beings, not problems to solve. 5 years after the case that shocked American medicine, Maria Rodriguez had become an international icon. Her story had been told in books, documentaries, and films. Universities worldwide invited her as guest professor. But what made Maria truly special was that despite fame, she remained the same humble person she'd always been. At Thompson Technologies, Maria had created a unique department, Human Observation and Wellness. Her team comprised people from diverse backgrounds, former nurses, social workers, psychologists, but also former workers, waiters, gardeners, all united by the ability to observe people with attention and empathy. The department didn't just monitor employee wellness. It had become a research center on nonverbal communication, stress and discomfort signals, and methods for creating more humane work environments. Techniques developed by Maria were adopted by hundreds of companies worldwide. Carlos, now in his 4th year of medical school, had become one of his university's brightest students. But what made him special wasn't just excellent grades. It was the human approach he learned from his mother. During hospital rotations, Carlos was known for his ability to put patients at ease and attention to details others overlooked. Dr. Stevens, now Mass General's general director, had made the hospital a world model for humanistic medicine. The Maria Rodriguez Protocol had been perfected and implemented in every department. Results were extraordinary. More accurate diagnoses, reduced hospital stays, more satisfied patients, and dramatically reduced medical errors. But Maria's true legacy went beyond protocols and procedures. She had changed how medicine itself was conceived, proving that healing means first seeing the person in their entirety, not just the disease. Edward Thompson, who had become one of Maria's best friends, often joked that being poisoned was the luckiest thing in his life, not only because he discovered his wife's true nature, but because he met someone who taught him authentic human value. Edward had completely reorganized his priorities. He had sold most of his companies to focus on philanthropic projects and the foundation dedicated to Maria. His 2 children, initially devastated by their mother's arrest, had grown under Maria's positive influence, who became a surrogate mother figure. The Maria Rodriguez Foundation had funded construction of a new pavilion at Mass General, entirely dedicated to holistic medicine and healthcare worker training. The pavilion was designed following Maria's principles: open spaces encouraging observation, common areas where all staff could meet, advanced technologies integrated with a deeply human approach. During the pavilion's inauguration, attended by the health secretary and international authorities, Maria gave a speech perfectly summarizing her philosophy. The most advanced medicine is that which never forgets that behind every symptom is a person, behind every diagnosis is a story, behind every therapy is hope. Patricia Thompson's case had become a reference point in criminological studies. The woman was sentenced to 20 years for attempted murder, but her story also brought greater attention to pathological gambling problems and psychological distress signals in apparently perfect families. Maria had also contributed to this aspect, developing protocols to recognize signs of domestic violence and abuse often overlooked in hospitals. Her holistic approach had saved many other lives, besides Edward's. The most significant recognition came from the international academic world. The World Health Organization created the Maria Rodriguez Award to annually recognize people who, regardless of formal training, had significantly contributed to medical progress through observation, empathy, and courage. The first award went to Maria herself, in a Geneva ceremony broadcast worldwide. In her acceptance speech, Maria dedicated the award to all invisible people working in hospitals, to those who clean, who cook, who assist, who care, all part of medicine, all capable of making a difference. 10 years after the case that made her famous, Maria looked back at her extraordinary transformation with wonder and gratitude. From invisible cleaning lady to global icon of humanistic medicine, she had proven that a person's value doesn't depend on titles, but on the ability to see, understand, and act with courage. Carlos, now a medical resident in internal medicine, worked in the same hospital where his mother had saved Edward Thompson. Every morning, entering the pavilion bearing his mother's name, he remembered the most important lesson, that the best medicine always puts the person at the center. Maria continued working, teaching, observing. At 72, she had the energy of someone much younger, fueled by passion and awareness of having found her true purpose in life. Her story had become legend, but Maria knew the real victory wasn't fame. It was proving that every person, even the humblest, can change the world if they have courage to speak when they see something wrong. While continuing to travel the world teaching her method, Maria always carried a photo from that first day at Mass General when she saw what 20 doctors couldn't see. It was the memory of when she discovered that the most precious intelligence is that of the heart, and that humility is the key to seeing truth. Because sometimes it takes just a cleaning lady to save a life and change the world of medicine. Like if you believe heart intelligence is worth more than any title, comment which moment in the story moved you most. Share to inspire those who believe every person can make a difference. Subscribe for more stories of redemption and human value. Sometimes those who studied less see more than those who studied more. Sometimes humility is more powerful than arrogance. And sometimes invisible people are the ones who truly change the world. Because a person's true value is measured by their ability to see others,